Hi there, welcome back to the Beanbag. Today I am looking at some of the figures of Romulans from the Star Trek Playmates line, as well as a few customs that I have made over the years. We'll start off with the first Romulan that ever came from the line, which is this one here. This was just labeled generically as Romulan Officer. And I've always suspected that he was sort of kind of based, and I cannot remember the name of the episode right this minute. It's the one where it's Geordi, Data, Troy, and Picard on the runabout, and they get to the Enterprise and find that it's frozen in time because of an accident that happened with some aliens, and there's a Romulan ship, and there's a Romulan officer running around on the ship, who the face sculpt of this looks sort of like, I believe that was from the 6th season, maybe 7th season of Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, sorry about that. But I'm not sure. This is, like I said, this is just generically Romulan officer, and a lot of people have complained about the wide stance of this one. That's because, of course, that first line of figures, a lot of them had that dynamic posing. Eventually, when we look at the Ferengi, it had probably the most ridiculous of the dynamic posing, with that large hand thing that was going on. It was the same thing we discussed with the Riker from that first line, that his hands were done in a very weird position. Thankfully, this one, it didn't have too much of that. It was, he's positioned to be able to hold his rifles and phasers and such in a very typical way. But the legs are kind of splayed apart, and it does make it, and it also makes it to where it's more difficult to have him sit, but he can still get into a sitting position. I don't have as much of a problem with this one as some people, and as you'll see, I've done a few customs using this one as well in a few moments. Another one that they did was Commander Sela, the only blonde Romulan. This was she was in a few episodes. This is, of course, Denise Crosby played her as the daughter of Tasha Yar from an alternate timeline situation. Excuse me. This is another really good one. There are technically some mistakes in the episode. She didn't have long straight pants. They were more of the slightly shorter cuffed style, kind of like this guy. But other than that, the rest of the figure is actually quite good. The face sculpt is quite nice. The uniform itself is really good. So it's always been a really good one. I've always been a little curious about how this hand is supposed to be. It's sort of just open, flat. She can't really hold anything with that one. Didn't come with any kind of like flat tricorder or anything that would go in that hand. Of course, now she appeared in the episode Reunification, which is where Captain Picard, disguised as a Romulan, went to go find Ambassador Spock. And this is one of those that, for some reason, they put out 1 million of these figures. And so it seems like you can come across tons and tons and tons of these online. And it's a good sculpt, but it's also a very limited situation because it's one huge chunk from neck to ankle kind of situation. The legs can move back and forth by about, inch and a half or so. But it's the only real playability factor is in the arms. The head does turn, but only that much. You can't go Exorcist on him like you can with the others and turn it around. And it's the same situation with the Data figure. Again, really great sculpt. And the texture on it is really fantastic. And the face sculpt is actually really good too, if I can get that to focus on him. Brent Spiner as a Romulan does look a little bit weird though. But again, it's that same minimal movement for the legs. You know, it's a big chunk of plastic from neck to ankle. But very, very good sculpt otherwise. And I do like the hoods on them. They turned out really good. Now, the rest of these are all customs that I made. I took the Spock or the Picard and Data heads, and I put them on that regular Romulan figure to make some other sort of generic Romulan officers. And you see, it did a bit of a repaint on this one just to make a little bit of a difference between them so that they don't look identical. There's Commander, oh man, I'm going blank on her name. On Deep Space Nine, she was the Romulan commander who they allowed her to set up an office on the station and almost started a war with Bajor. And I am drawing a blank on her name now. Commander... I can't remember. Well, I'll try and post it on screen. Then I did Ambassador Tomalek, which is from that episode of Deep Space Nine. And I did intentionally use, this is the arm off of the Andorian figure that kind of holds up in a weird position. And I did that on purpose so that I could put a little dill in his hand and he can be like, it's a fake! But this is one of my favorites as far as the customs that I've made. That this actually, the head is just a reuse of that first wave Romulan officer. Because he actually does kind of look a lot like the actor who played Tomalek. Or not Tomalek. Ambassador Kretak. Maybe. Romulan names get so confused to me. The last one I've got is from the episode of The Next Generation when Counselor Troy went under disguise as a Romulan Tal Shiar officer. As you can see, the body on this is all entirely a repaint and a little bit of resculpting. I actually did the pants on this one correctly of the Commander Sela figure. And yeah, I can't remember what her disguise name was. It's kind of like I can't remember what Picard's name was when he was in disguise as a Romulan. But yeah, and I sculpted the extra little Tal Shiar shoulder band on there as well. That is it for the Romulans that I have right now. Thank you for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.